This happened 2 nights ago, so I'm still replaying it over and over in my head. I thought this would be a good place to share. I'm a pretty predictable person, with a predictable schedule, so I'm not sure if this was a random occurrence, or if someone knew my nightly routine. I'm a 35-year-old woman. My husband Rob gets up for work hours before me, so he goes to bed before I do. Usually I get to bed a few hours after he does, around the same time every night. I turn off the lights and the TV in the living room and take my dog to the back door to let her out. She's tiny, old, and poses zero threat to anyone. The door leads to a large deck outside. Off to the right of the deck is a few steps down and a small pathway to the gate, which we always keep chained and locked. Every single night before opening the door, I peek out the window right next to it without disturbing the blinds and flip on the deck light. I never expect anyone to be out there, and we've never had a problem with anyone trespassing or trying to break in. It's just something I do every night. Kinda like peeking behind the shower curtain before I pee. I know no one is back there, but if I don't check, then that's gonna be the one time that there's actually someone hiding there. You know? I watch a ton of horror movies, and it's pitch black outside at night where I live, so cut me a break. A few nights ago, I got ready for bed. I went to the back door with my dog slowly following behind me, and peeked out the window. I flipped on the light. My heart jumped in my throat as I saw a skinny, dirty guy in his 30s or 40s standing off to the side of the door facing it. I saw him raise his arm up and hold a screwdriver above his head as soon as the light went on, preparing for someone to open the door. I screamed, "Rob, get up! Get the gun!" as loud as I could, which startled the man. He jumped over the rail of the deck, even though he was right next to the stairs, and ran away. My husband ran out of our bedroom with his gun. He called the police, and they showed up within 5 minutes. They drove all around trying to find the guy, but no luck. The guy broke the lock on our gate to get in. He also pried open the back screen door, which we always keep locked as well. If I would have opened the door without looking first, I might be dead. I don't know if I caught the guy trying to break in, or if he was waiting for me to open the door like I do every night. Either way, it was fucking terrifying. My parents are buying us outdoor security cameras this week as an early birthday present for Rob. I have an issue with writing novels, so bear with me a bit. I hadn't realized I buried this memory until a weird trigger made me remember it a few months ago. I can honestly say it was the scariest thing of my life, and I think it shaped how I see the world a lot more than I realized. I'll start with what triggered the memory. I was watching the first season of The Sinner a few months ago, and this happens in like the first 2 minutes, and is literally the promo photo, so it's not really a spoiler or anything. When the main character starts psychotically stabbing a guy, I got a very perturbed pit in my stomach. The scene is extremely disturbing, and sometimes scenes just get to me, but I'm a rabid horror fan, and I'm typically unfazed by these kinds of things. I've never experienced such a visceral, lasting reaction to a television scene, and it kind of freaked me out. I watched a few episodes at my friend's, and felt panicky and trapped. I eventually went home because I couldn't bear the feeling I had watching it. Then, as my obsessive only child Enneagram Type 5 self always does, I began obsessing over finding the root cause of the skin-crawling feeling I couldn't shake. Finally, I remembered it. I don't remember the exact moment later on in the show, but something triggered the memory of what happened to my mom and I when I was just a kid. This all happened in 2004, when I was only 11. My mom is a paralegal, and at the time worked at a family law firm. Something urgent had come up, as is life in the legal world, and she had to go get case materials from her job that night. She took me with her to go grab them. It was around 7 p.m. I should mention, I guess, that I lived in a fairly affluent and nice neighborhood, where it was safe and nothing bad ever really happened. My mom and I watch horror movies, so this isn't one of those forgot to lock the front door stories. I say this to give credit to my mom's insane sense of intuition that likely saved both our lives that night. We pulled into the parking lot, and my mom didn't get out of the car. I'm an only child, so I was reading in the back seat, and honestly, I didn't notice or care. But eventually, I asked her why we weren't getting out of the car yet. She replied that she was waiting because, as we pulled in, someone walked through the parking lot and got into their car right behind us, then proceeded to wait in his car while it was on with the lights pointed at ours. It wasn't overtly sketchy or creepy, as there were several non-ominous explanations, but my mom had a gut feeling. After 5 or 10 minutes of waiting, she eventually turned to me and said, "Okay, I have no idea what this guy is doing, so let's just go grab the stuff and leave." I didn't know this at the time because I was mildly oblivious, but he got out of his car and followed us. My mom told me to hurry up because it was freezing, and we jogged over to the door. Her building required a card to buzz you inside, so once we got in, we figured we'd be fine. The parking lot we were in is giant, and random people hang out there all the time, including myself frequently as a teenager. He came from seemingly nowhere, so the chances of him having a card to buzz in were not very high. This was also something I wasn't really aware of or paying attention to at the time, but a few moments after we buzzed in, thinking we were in the clear, he slid in right behind us. I asked my mom about this. I didn't learn what happened until years later, and I can understand why she didn't tell me. She said a few things ran through her mind. He could have been a total psycho who stole someone's card, which was the least likely as it was too random. So either he was an employee or a client. They held late-night mediation sessions inside the building, so it was typical to give clients a temporary pass for convenience. I'm going to assume this practice changed after this event. My mom, knowing the ID card system, actually wondered if she was overthinking it at this point, but she just had that gut feeling and stuck to it. Truly taught me from the get-go to fuck politeness. I hadn't seen him follow us in, and my mom honestly played it so cool that I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. I just thought it was another random employee. But I remembered having a weird gut feeling that I just couldn't put my finger on. Mercifully, I decided to shut up and follow my mom's lead. Before he came in, my mom was frantically pressing the elevator button, just in case he somehow got in, but it hadn't come yet. He came in and waited for the elevator for us. My mom was fake polite and said hello. Then when it came, he got in and held the door open for us, waiting. My mom really fucking killed it, thinking on her feet and pretended to get a call. She kind of shooed me to the side and told him, "Oh, I have to take this, so we'll just wait for the next one. Thank you," and ushered us both away. I followed without protest, even though I knew I saw that no one had actually called her. After the weird feeling I got and seeing her fake a call, I knew something was up. That and the man was extremely creepy, standing there holding open the elevator. The second it took off, she immediately pressed the button so the next one would come down, and grabbed me and told me quietly, That was the man who was waiting behind us in the car in the parking lot. He got out of his car and followed us inside. I was not letting us get in an elevator with him. When the elevator comes, we're going to run to my office and wait a few minutes before we take the stairwell out. At this point, I was freaking out, but stayed calm and quiet and followed her lead. She saw that his elevator went to the 3rd floor. She was on the 2nd, so we wouldn't run into him. Even if he somehow discovered we went to the 2nd floor on a different elevator, her office was right next to it, so he wouldn't have ever caught up to us. We ran into her office and locked the door, and waited for about 5 to 10 minutes while she held her ear against it to make sure she didn't hear anything. As I'm writing this, it almost makes me laugh, thinking that we sound like lunatics because, at this point, we sound like paranoid freaks. Nothing had happened, but I'm so glad we watch way too many horror movies. We then unlocked the door and quickly looked out. We ran to the stairwell and ran the fuck out of her office, got in the car and drove home. That was the end of the story for me, at least at the time. I asked my mom when I was a teenager if she remembered that weird time at her office when we hid inside and ran away from a man in the elevator. Her face turned white, and she told me what had transpired while we were both waiting in her office and ran out of the soundproof stairwell. You see, the man in the elevator was there for a custody mediation session with his estranged ex-wife. He was against the divorce and was desperately trying to stop his wife from divorcing him. The custody session took place before my mom and I got there. He had refused to sign papers that would have awarded him less than 50% of their children living with him. He apparently got so angry that he got up and walked out halfway through the session. His wife decided to remain in the office for about 25 minutes after he left, because she was freaked out. During this time, he went back to his car and just sat inside it and sobbed. This was the moment when my mom and I had pulled into the office building. He eventually grabbed a pair of kitchen scissors he had in the glove box and got out and went back to the building, which is when he followed my mom and I inside. I'm not sure if us getting out of the car kind of snapped him out of it and gave him the push, if you will, to go back inside. He came back inside at the same time as us and got in the elevator, which he invited us inside with him. Based on the evidence from the trial involving a gray sweatshirt, prosecutors put together that he went to the 3rd floor and lurked around waiting for his wife. He got back in the elevator and waited until his wife went to leave and got inside. He proceeded to ambush her and stabbed her 106 times with a pair of scissors in his pocket. He murdered his wife in the most gruesome fashion. The details of the case are horrifying. The links are below, but fair warning on some graphic details. What chills me to my core is wondering what would have happened if we got into the elevator. It was clear he had an agenda and a direct target. It's highly possible he would have just left us alone and went along with his plan. But the last detail is that while he was waiting in his car, he was snorting methamphetamines and was high as a kite. The mediator was the key witness in trial, and her testimony is horrifying. Her husband also worked in the building, and she was walking to his office when she suddenly heard screaming. When she got closer to the elevator, she heard the wife yelling out her name. She yelled out, "It's him!" She found the husband dragging his wife inside the elevator with blood splattered everywhere, all over the walls. Then, right in front of her, he continued to plunge the scissors into his wife. When the police got there, they found him holding her, who was dead, choking her with his arm around her neck. This all took place while we were still in the building. We didn't hear it because we were in the cement stairwell and ran directly outside. All of the above is to say that he clearly went absolutely psychotic and lost his mind. Somebody who stabs their wife over 100 times with a pair of poultry scissors is clearly insane. But him rabidly continuing to murder her in front of the mediator and choking a dead body when the police arrived is just horrifying levels of awfulness. There's nothing to say that we wouldn't have set him off in the most random way, or that he hadn't already entered his psychotic break. My mom's actions likely saved our lives that night. She had a gut feeling and trusted her intuition. I read stories on here every day and sympathize heavily with them, of the people, particularly women, who are conditioned to be polite and end up in danger as a result. My mom knew the fake call might have seemed like bullshit, but she did not give a fuck and was absolutely not getting in the elevator with him. She's not only my hero, but my best teacher. I learned that night to be hyper-vigilant, pay attention to every detail, and to fuck politeness. I'll never forget the slightly too wide, toothy smile that didn't seem to reach his eyes while he stood 5 feet away from my mom and I holding open the elevator. Now that I've had this memory resurface, I think about it all the time. What would have happened if we got on with him? We've lived in our neighborhood for nearly 4 years. A few houses down and across the street is a Filipino family. They're nice, and whenever we see each other, we always have small talk, and we know each other by name. We moved in right before I gave birth to my oldest, so they always ask for the baby, and he loves playing with them. We even had meals at each other's homes. This summer, they had an older family member, maybe 55 to 60 years old, come to visit. We noticed him right away, because he would always go for long walks and liked to linger a lot. One evening, the mother of the family introduced him as her father. He had recently moved and would be staying with them for a while before heading north to her sister's house. He was new to the US and spoke very little English, maybe just enough to get by. He seemed nice enough, but as soon as we walked inside, I told my husband that he gave me a weird vibe. I had never felt that way about any of the other 7 family members from the home. I'd been in their home and shared meals with them. They're very sweet and welcoming. My husband told me that he too seemed like he felt a little off, but we chalked it up to some cultural differences. Fast forward about a month. My mother-in-law and mother come to visit at the same time. They're in the driveway with our son. I run inside because I'm pregnant and suffer from severe morning sickness. I came back out after 15 minutes, and they were having a frustrating conversation with this man. He was trying to get one of them to drive him to the store, and he would use a food stamp and EBT card to buy their groceries. He wanted them to give him some cash. They both told him they weren't interested, but he just kept asking and lingering. When I went out, I called my husband to come out too, and when he saw us, he walked away quickly. Our mothers both told us what happened and how forceful he was. The next few days, I see him walking. We wave and say simple pleasantries, but every time I would wave, he would take it as a sign to come over and try to force a conversation. I let him know what he did with our mothers is illegal, and to be so forceful was unnecessary. He said that he understood, but he would just linger. It would always be at a moment where I was trying to strap my toddler in his car seat, and I was rushing to get him to school. It would take me 10 minutes to get him to get the hint that I couldn't talk, and he would slowly walk away and meander in our driveway. It got to the point where I would watch to see if he had walked past our house on his morning walk before venturing outside. I hated the awkward conversation. He would always seem to round the corner just as I finished strapping my son in the car and I was getting in. I would wave and jump in quickly and drive off. It just felt off, like he was waiting for me. Our neighbor across the street one night told me she got a weird vibe off him as well. and he always lingered. She told me he did similar things with her when they were outside. They were opting to hang in the backyard with the kids to avoid it altogether. Usually I work from home, but one day I went to the office and I was alerted by the Ring camera. This man was standing and looking in through our kitchen window, just peering, and I could hear our pit bull barking. When he saw our dog, he jumped back, and I used the microphone to say, "Can I help you? What do you want?" He looked shocked and scurried away. I called my husband and told him to play the Ring camera video. We both thought it was creepy as fuck. When we saw the family walking that evening, we brought it up with his daughter. She spoke to her father, and he claimed that it never even happened. We showed her the video on her phone, and he said he must have gotten lost. The daughter seemed annoyed by him and the situation. So him being weird calmed down a bit after that. I could see his daughter was annoyed with him, and as they were walking there was a heated conversation. She later told me he tends to be overly friendly, and that he means no harm, but she talked to him and he would leave us alone. I asked if it was a mental issue or maybe Alzheimer's, since he said he was getting lost. She told me he had always acted like that, and she couldn't wait until her sister was ready for him to be sent up north to her. A few other neighbors had complained about him to her and the homeowners association. About 2 months later, I dropped my son off to preschool. I got home and had to rush in because I feel sick. Usually I leave my car door open, but something told me to lock it as I got out. I did as I was rushing inside. I would also normally leave the door unlocked if I was just going for a quick throw-up session, but again, my instincts said to lock the bottom and top lock. When I was in the bathroom, right by the front door, throwing up my life, I hear a rattling. Someone is turning the lock back and forth. Of course, my ring chimes, and I look at it between heaves. It's the old man. He's trying to get into our house. I go over to the microphone and say, "You're at the wrong house." He responds, "Let me in, now. I want to tell you something." It's the best English sentence I've ever heard from someone who wasn't supposed to be that good at English. I felt better pretty quickly and was now on alert. I responded with, "What do you want to tell me?" He looked right at the camera. "Let me in right now. Let me in your house now." This is where I panicked. He knew he was at the wrong house, but he was still continuing. "Please get off my property. I don't feel comfortable with you here, and I'm not letting you in." He rattles at the door again hard and tries to pull it open. He starts knocking at the bathroom window. This is where I started to get pissed. "Get the fuck off my goddamn property. I'm not letting you inside, you freaking creep." He steps back and gives the camera the middle finger and scurries off. He disappears, and I run upstairs to see that he's simply walking back to his house. I let the pit bull out of our bedroom, where he had been going nuts. I call my husband, and he tells me to call the daughter. I call her and tell her what happened, and she told me not to let him in. She also warned me that he's been inappropriate and forceful with women in her family, and she didn't want me to get hurt, especially because I was pregnant. She came over about an hour later, and I showed her the video. She was fuming. She begged me not to call the cops. She promised he would be gone the next day. And the very next day, he flew out, and his daughter told him he was no longer welcome in her home. He now lives up north in Maryland with his other daughter, probably harassing other people. I honestly don't know what would have happened if I didn't follow my instincts that day. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. As always, be sure to let me know what you guys think, and please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. I know some people have also had some problems about videos not appearing in their sub box, so please make sure to hit that little bell if you guys want to always be notified of when my next video comes out. As always, links to all of my social media will be in the description of the video below. You can find links to my Twitter, Gmail, Twitch, and Facebook accounts. So if you guys ever want to talk to me, just go ahead and shoot me a message on any of those, and I'll try to respond to your message as soon as possible. I'm also going to start trying to stream on Twitch a little bit more, so if you guys have notifications on there, you'll be notified right away when I go live. I might also try to do some on YouTube, but I haven't decided yet. I'm still kind of trying to decide what kind of streams I want to do. Anyways, if you guys have a story you would like to send in, or if you have a story you would like to suggest that I read, go ahead and send me a message on any of those links in the description below. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include the title, how you would like to be credited, and any genres that the story might have, if it does have one. If you guys are curious about the music used in this video, go ahead and take a look in the description below as well. I always put all of the music in the order in which it appears in the video, and I also have links to the artists as well. Last but not least, I also have a Patreon if you guys feel like you want to contribute to the channel a little bit, but of course, as always, it is never required, and you will never have to pay for watching any of my videos, so that's just something you do if you feel like it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please be sure to leave your feedback in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you very much.